Well, this series just keeps on going, doesn't it? Welcome to another For the Love of Star Wars. We have another guest joining us to talk about one of their favourite pieces of Star Wars media. We finally managed to get him on the channel. It is Mando number 5, Keith Guppy. Welcome, Keith.
Hey, Keith.
Are you well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Good. I really appreciate it.
That's right. Let's get straight into it because we've gone a little bit off-piste for this one. What have you chosen to discuss today, Keith?
Well, we've chosen some chapters from the Tartakovsky animated series from 2003. I absolutely love the series. I think it's a great linkage into two of the films and a real favourite of mine.
Yeah, brilliant. It is good, yeah. So we've gone with chapters 17 through to 20 to talk about this evening, right?
Yeah. It could have been a number of chapters. Both the first, second, and the third season, they're all brilliant. As I said, I love the way they link in and some of the animation and the things. I wish they could do that in real life because it's fantastic. Some of the scenes from the film, it's really great, and I'd thoroughly recommend it to anyone who's trying to just link from the Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith. It fills a huge void, and although it's not technically canon, it's legend now. Which is a shame. It gives you a real good tie-in. Some of the key scenes is really good.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get a little bit of information about it. These particular episodes were released in April of 2004, if I'm not mistaken. The series ran from 2003 to 2005, which, as you said, falls between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So it's quite interesting how, some of it leads on to Revenge of the Sith, like certain characters and stuff, but we'll get into that. Written and directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, who is essentially Mr. Cartoon Network, isn't he? I mean, it's all his style, isn't it, on all of the Cartoon Network, or a lot of the Cartoon Network. So over these 4 episodes, or these 4 chapters, it accumulated, if you like, an average IMDb rating of about 8.6, I've worked out to. And Volume 2 went on to win an Emmy, which is the first Emmy-winning web series. So pretty good, pretty impressive.
I think it might have even been the first Emmy that anything to do with Star Wars won as well, if I read that correctly.
Is that right?
When I was reading up about it earlier. I think so, yeah. I know the Clone Wars won some awards, but I think this series was the first ever award for Star Wars, the Emmy. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. So, Keith, what is it about this that you love?
Well, it's just terrific. I mean, you've got the classic characters. It's just the sheer scale of some of it. Some of the space battles, not necessarily in the chapters we're going to talk about today, but some of the space battles in the other chapters, and they really, in a comedic way, in some scenes, they exaggerate what the Jedi can do, but it's just fantastic. And the series moves on at such a pace. The characters develop. You see, the different phase of clone troopers. You see how the Jedi starfighters develop. You see how Anakin develops and how he goes through his trials and becomes a Jedi Master. And there's lots of tie-ins to the film. And then it all culminates with the Battle of Coruscant, which lines up with Revenge of the Sith, and I think that's fantastic how that links in. And things in example, just to think about, you see General Grievous's cough in Revenge of the Sith, and in the Cartoon Network series, right at the end, you see Mace Windu force grab his throat, and that's an indication of how that happened. Although I think that's probably now legend, not canon, but just things like that, I think is absolutely fantastic. Particularly the episodes we're going to talk about, we see Asajj Ventress and Anakin battling on, I think it's Yavin 4.
On Yavin 4,
great tie-in again. But you see them having the battle, and she takes out a load of troopers, and there's quite a comedic scene where they get off the gunship and they're going hut 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 hut, a bit like even Police Academy. But the way she takes them out is great. And then my favorite scene, I think, is that piece where it just starts raining. And they've got the lightsabers, and it's just here. that is an amazing moment. And then you go on to see, obviously, the demise of her, and you see Anakin, just a little hint of the dark side, in his anger, and a lot of that, and he gets quite upset when he loses his R4 droid, and his starfighter,
rightly so.
The Azure Angel, I think it's called the Azure Angel, the starfighter, his modified starfighter, which is cool. And I think I've got that as a ship, and it's a fantastic ship. But I mean, it's just a fantastic series. And there's little, I went through one of my other videos. I went through some of the toys of the Cartoon Network, and even today, I watched it again, and I saw this droid here, which is in the pit with Sarge battling all the different creatures. L8, L9 Builder droid set from, I think, the Legacy Collection. And even they just drop these little figures in, and they don't sort of tie it in. They just say, "Oh yeah, we've got a Builder droid," but that was that's a key little another figure from the series, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And like we say, it has that famous Cartoon Network style, but it is such a cool, interesting style. But what I really enjoy about it is that it's so well told, but visually there's not a great deal of dialogue going on, yet it still tells quite a story, which is just brilliant.
I think the scene with the first General Grievous scenes, it is so suspenseful, and I think Revenge of the Sith let General Grievous down a little bit, because the scenes in the cartoon where he's battling the Jedi, and he's got he's almost doing a handstand with his lightsaber in his feet, kicking their butts, and they are they do a real. What I love about them is they do a real close up of the Jedi, and you just see the sweat pouring down. The nervousness, and one of the Jedi just has a freak and runs out, in a panic.
Padawan,
I can't name him, but he runs out and he just gets smashed, with Grievous. And then they'd be talking, just having the Grievous, and where is he? And you just see him dangle from the ceiling, and you just see General Grievous, and it's brilliant. And if he only looks like that in the films, it'd have been fantastic. I mean, there's a scene as well there where he spins his lightsaber, and he, he's sort of in a circle spinning really fast. And they tried to do a bit of that in Revenge of the Sith, where he has a fight with Obi-Wan, and he's going like that with his lightsabers, and they just touched on it. I think they could have done a lot more, but that is a great scene. You really, really get the suspensefulness from that scene, and you really think the Jedi are bricking it, literally, which is fantastic.
So was this, obviously it leads into Revenge of the Sith, but did they know about the the story of Revenge of the Sith when they were making this, or do we know how did they take elements of this instead?
I don't know. They didn't. No. I mean, it was great they pulled it on, but it was sounds like Martin knows.
Martin will know. Martin will know.
Yeah, I mean, not the particular episodes we're talking about today, but the second season, as I call it, it's quite difficult because sometimes it's called the third season, but I call it the second season. It's about probably an hour long, the second season, and the episodes are about 15 minutes. I think there's 4 15-minute episodes, and it just tells one linear story of the kidnap of Chancellor Palpatine from Coruscant, all the way up to him being taken away, Shaak Ti trying to protect him, and which also leads into one of the deleted scenes that they never used for Revenge of the Sith, where General Grievous murders Shaak Ti on his is it the invisible hand, Keith? So there was definitely talking going on between George Lucas or the writers or whatever of Revenge of the Sith and the makers of this series, because there's so many links, like, as Keith said, the forced grab of General Grievous, which gave him the cough, Shaak Ti and the Chancellor being kidnapped from Coruscant, Obi-Wan and Anakin being rushed back from what they were doing in those episodes because the droid invasion of Coruscant was happening, and you see them rush off. So I think in terms of the second season, there definitely was some chat. I think for this season that we were talking about now, I think there probably was some overall chats maybe, but I think the fact that a few things don't line up, hence why they've had to make the whole thing non-canon, tells me that they probably didn't really know what was going to happen in Revenge of the Sith, because if you think about it, they're probably filming Revenge of the Sith at the time of this season.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah, and they probably would be worried about spoilers, and because what they like at Lucasfilm at the time.
Yeah.
So a very long answer.
Yeah.
Yes, I think for the second season they did have involvement. Maybe for the season we're talking about, probably
Yeah.
not.
In the we're talking about, they had the Battle of Minimalists, and they showed that figure just celebrating the winning battle, which is what's that Wolvinman. But I found out the other day that they actually did I think they did a fan poll to bring a Jedi back, and I think the other two Jedi appeared in the Coruscant series, and this one was the one they chose. But this one was had a much minor part after that, and the other two had a much bigger part. But just a bit of trivia I found out when I was reading.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, Martin, we didn't find out what you love about this series, and
Well, the specific episodes. I think the first episode, chapter 17, it starts off just brilliantly. You see Anakin Starfighter flying under the red gas giant, and then you see him flying towards Yavin 4, which is a complete replica of the shot you see of the Millennium Falcon doing in A New Hope. So that instantly gets you in the mood. You've got the Masasi temples, and you've got the jungle. You've got them fighting on Yavin 4, and as Keith quite eloquently put it, the really funny but also serious scene of Asajj Ventress one by one taking out the clone troopers. And then the fact that, and we'll go into more detail later, but the fight itself, and of course the introduction of General Grievous. Again, I think Keith is spot on. He's more imposing and terrifying, to be quite frank, in this series, and I'd argue in some, and I say some, of the 3D Clone Wars animation, he's a bit more, especially in that Tales of the Empire that we just had out, and you saw the flashback of him taking out the Night Sisters. I think in these examples, he's really badass. He's quite an evil character, and he's kind of more comedic in Revenge of the Sith. So when you first saw General Grievous in this, you were like, whoa, this guy, he's going to be a real threat to the Jedi. And a last little note, that Jedi that ran out and then gets squished by General Grievous was based on Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. One of the animators. If you go back and look at his face, I'll put him up on the screen now in the edit. He's basically based on Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Nice touch.
I think one of them was called Tarsier, I think. I think one of them was called Tarsier, I'm not sure. And Krook, the one that's in the Legacy series, he was also in that battle and got killed. Which I didn't realise until the other day as well. Because I think in the cartoon he had quite a big hood on, and as the action figure, there we go. As the action figure, you don't really notice, but he's in it very carefully. He's one of the Jedi that gets killed in that scene.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, he takes on all of the Jedi and absolutely batters 3 Jedi Council members in that fight. And I know it's only 2D animation we're talking about, but even still, they're on the Jedi Council for a reason. And as a Star Wars fan, when you see that happen, you think to yourself, this guy's a serious threat. And he shows no signs of running away like you see him doing in the movie whenever things.
And even in the next series, at the start, he takes on the Republic gunship, the Tiger Teeth one, with Captain Fordo and his troopers, and it's them who run away, even with a gunship. And that's, like I said, there's so many chapters I could choose, but that chapter's brilliant, with a gunship flying through and with its guns going, and then we have the heavy gunner. Just brilliant.
Yeah. So back in 2003 to 2005, how did they release these? Because they're very short chapters, aren't they? Would they have done them because they continue on so seamlessly? Did they release it all in one go?
I don't think you did. I had them on CD. They came out on CD quite quickly, but I don't know. I can't remember. I believe you had to wait.
Yeah, they actually came out daily. You got one episode a day for 2 weeks. I think, well, I know because I remember downloading them on a torrent every single day when they'd come out. We'll cut that bit out, but they came out daily basically. On the
because you would have wanted to watch them, one after the other, wouldn't you? The way they lead on from each other. Yeah. Did you both watch them when they were first released? Did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, straight away. Yeah.
Yeah.
No shock in the answer there.
No, of course, both big Star Wars fans, because this is actually the first time that I've watched it, and yeah, I switched it on, and I had started it recently or a couple of months ago. So when I switched it on, it dropped in at the point where Ventress is in that battle that you were just talking about, Keith, where she takes on all of the different creatures and people and whatnot.
Yeah, it's sort of the arena in front of you. Yeah.
Yes, and obviously we were trying to get to these chapters, but I was sat there watching that for ages. Before I even got to these, I was like, I must watch the skip on to chapter 17. But I was just sat there watching that for ages because it was quite entertaining.
Yeah. They managed to slip in quite characters as well. They slip in Wookiees. They slip in the Droopy McCall. Is it the blue like Smurf people? They drop. I can't remember what the name of the character, the races, but they drop. I think they drop in the green men from the Ewoks cartoon at some point as well. I saw the other day, and so they do manage to cover quite a lot actually, and there's some funny moments as well. They've got a bit. There's quite a lot of comedy in it as well. You got Cody. Cody turns up. What I had to set here, but Cody turns up a couple of times in the later series, and there's one where they're doing the sieges, the Outer Rim sieges, and he drops in and he says something like, we've only got like a year to go or a few months to go, and they're sat in this cold, dingy trench, freezing cold,
right.
and he just lands and goes, "Don't worry, it was good news. We've only got a few years to go," whatever it was. I can't remember what he said now, Marion, but and he just takes off, and they just look at each other. So great.
Yeah, and I think in that same scene, you're seeing Anakin eating like worms and insects in front of Obi-Wan, and he's just like throwing them in the air and catching them in his mouth. And he's asking him where he's been, and in his comedic moment, all of a sudden, the base behind him just starts exploding because Anakin just went on his own and decided to plant some bombs. Yeah, it's a great show. But I'm really chuffed, right, that you chose this, Keith, because as I say, as Adam just said, he hasn't seen this yet, and I'd argue that the second season, if you were to watch it as a whole movie, is some of my favorite Star Wars there is. I think that whole Battle of Coruscant is absolutely incredible, and so I'm so excited for Adam to watch that because I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's really, really good, and it's always exciting for me when someone who hasn't seen something that I think is amazing, and I know is amazing, that they get to see it for the first time, because I love to hear what they thought. So yeah, I can't wait for that.
If you ever start to Revenge of the Sith, you see them, they're flying, aren't they? And the two Jedi starfighters, and they kind of dip. Your tummy goes up a little bit, and they dip into the battle. Or in the cartoon, you see it, but it's like 100 times more ships. And it's fantastic.
Amazing. Going back to these chapters, do you have a particular highlight from any of these four?
I think the highlight is seeing General Grievous fight for the first time, and the way he does a handstand and just flips Jedi with his claws and just flips them against the cave wall, and totally dominant and brilliant. And he's got his already got several lightsabers around his waist and stuff, and and the way he just appears out the shadows, and the Jedi, as I said, they're absolutely terrified. That's probably my favorite bit. And apart in those chapters, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, for me, you touched on it earlier. It was the rain hitting the lightsabers and sizzling in that particular bit. It's a very very simple thing, but I don't know. I was watching that and I was thinking, I don't feel like this has been done before.
I don't think it's been
or since. No. So for me, I was like, oh, just do you know what? That's really cool. Yeah. Martin.
I mean, there's a few things that I picked out, if you don't mind. The first is absolutely both of what you picked. The lightsaber, the raindrops falling on the lightsaber is pretty damn iconic now. 20 years later, everybody knows of that scene, and it's a brilliant scene. General Grievous, absolutely dominating and not needing any help from any of the other droids, and quite efficiently taking out all the Jedi. whether he's killed them or just injured them. He's he's absolutely menacing. But I think I would choose the actual lightsaber combat on the temple between Asajj and Anakin, and there's a number of reasons. I think for a 2D animated show, and I'll be upfront, I watched this on my TV at home through Disney Plus, and then I went and watched it on my computer again, just that scene. And I watched it on my media player, and you know how you can slow down footage slightly on a media player on the PC. So I played it at half speed, and when you watch the choreography of the lightsaber fight between the two of them, because obviously being animated and 2D, they speed it up really quickly, don't they? So it looks great, but it's really speedy. If you slow it down to half speed and actually watch the choreography of the lightsaber duel, it's absolutely brilliant, absolutely incredible. And you know, as Keith said earlier, there's that moment where Anakin, he's not playing with her, but it's about equal, isn't it? And they're fighting, and then I think he loses his lightsaber, and then he thinks, right, enough's enough, and he takes one of hers, and I think he actually breaks her wrist or something during the fight, because you hear a crack.
Yeah, because there he you've got his, he's just done that, and he's got her lightsaber there, and he probably got the same
right.
Yeah. But because at the start of that battle, she takes him by surprise, I think, and he's he's on a back foot quite a lot.
And also, you're right. And also, there's those great scenes where they're just jumping up and into the trees, aren't they? And there's they can't see one another. That's also brilliant. But I mean,
you've got the light. So they're both holding the lightsaber, and their faces are lit up with their own light. So that's terrific as well.
Yeah, but so they're up on the temple, and he's finally he's doing that thing that Vader does Luke does in Return of the Jedi, where he's like wham bam, really hitting the over and over again on Vader's saber in Return of the Jedi. But Anakin's doing it on Asajj, and he finally knocks it out of her hand, and she goes flying over the cliff. And there's that scene where he's on the temple, and it's all that bright red sky behind him, and he just goes that was because again, it's really basic animation. I mean, I don't mean in disrespect, it's great, but it's really basic colors, not many colors there at all, really. There's just him stood on a temple roof and with red background, and that scene of him doing that again, that's I'm hoping to find a good picture of that, because I want that to be the thumbnail for this episode. But that's such a great image and a great scene. So that would probably be my favorite, but it has to be said, it's very difficult, because there's a lot of great scenes, and that's quite a high compliment considering that all of these episodes are about 2 to 3 minutes long. So that would be my favorite scene.
There's another really not I think it's the second series, you've probably seen it, Martin, where they're attacking a planet, and there's a separatist leader, and he's going, how many Jedi are there? They must have said 10, no 50, no 1,000. And then the droid goes, we got 2 Jedi coming, basically. There's 2 Jedi coming. He goes, how many? They said 1,000. And he goes, no. And he goes, how many said 80? No. 5? No. 2. And it's, you see his eyes and a nervous he's got like a nervous tick. Oh, Christ. It's very funny.
Anakin, you definitely see more brutality in him in the second season, that's for sure. So as Keith said, it's a shame this isn't canon, really, because with the exception of a couple of things like Sarge Ventress, obviously being one of them, it lines up really, really well between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So it is a bit of a shame.
Grievous's cough is a really good one, and I think I think that's been taken out as well. I think there's another reason why he's got a cough, but it's really good, and that would explain why in Revenge of the Sith he's not really effective. I mean, you never think from the cartoon that Obi-Wan would be able to take him on by himself. He'd get trashed, like he was in the. So that for me shows he's been slowed up a bit because he's been force choked by Mace Windu. That would make sense. So
I think in the 3D animated Clone Wars, there is an argument to be made that he's probably more efficient in those than he is in the movie as well, because it tends to be, if he fights Obi-Wan or a Jedi in that series, it's usually something else that's defeated him. Like, I could just think of a couple of episodes where the ship gets hit and he's knocked off balance and he's just about to win the fight. So it's actually circumstance which makes him lose the battles rather than the Jedi being better than him. So yeah, it is a strange that in Revenge of the Sith he wasn't quite as how he was in the animated shows.
So, how do you think this series compares to the later Clone Wars animated series? Do you feel like there's sort of comparisons there? Do you prefer this over that?
I prefer this. I must
Do you?
admit,
Yeah.
I prefer the scale of it, the speed of it, the slight over exaggeration of Jedi powers in it. One of the other great scenes. I mean, go on forever, but there's like a planet killer, and Mace Windu takes on millions of battle droids, and he's going in their heads, and 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 he takes one apart with his force powers. I mean, in one scene, doesn't he? Just nuts and bolts, just takes them apart. I mean, you wouldn't get that in the other Clone Wars series, but I love it. And Mace Windu's really chiseled, and I think the Battle of Coruscant as well. General Tin, I think there's one of the guys said we're losing our ship, and he goes, let's just take another one. It's like rock hard. Just go and get another one, shall we? That's funny as well. But I prefer the cartoon series. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot smaller, and it's not as long, and there's probably episodes from the Clone Wars that are probably better in isolation. But for that, that short period of time, and what's it, a couple hours, is it? I can't beat it. I love Empire Strikes Back. I love, Hoth would have been one of the battle scenes, and all that. But I really love this. I think I've just got everything. It's brilliant.
Martin?
Oh dear, this is a loaded question. Well, I think my answer. I love the 3D animated Dave Filoni, George Lucas Clone Wars. I think it's probably one of my favorite of all Star Wars media. I hold it in high esteem as the movies. That's how much I love it. That being said, that does not mean in any way that I think this is not close, because this was what we had back in the mid 2000s, and it was perfectly good, and it's still perfectly good now. And I mean, you heard me talk earlier about that second season that you haven't seen yet, Adam. I mean, watching that and the lightsaber fights in that between Shakti and General Grievous, and I don't want to ruin it too much for you, but that's one of my favorite episodes or seasons of anything in Star Wars. So while I would definitely say that the 3D Clone Wars is my favorite, this means, I mean, no disrespect to this, because this is also absolutely brilliant and a must for any Star Wars fan who hasn't seen it. So it's probably the most eloquent way I can put it.
Yeah,
I think when people watch this, the video now we're doing, I think there's going to be a few out there who haven't watched it, and I'd be really interested in the feedback you get back, because I think there's going to be many people go, "Oh Christ, I didn't watch that before. I thought it was just a bit of a cartoon, and didn't want And I think there's going to be a lot of surprised people out there. I hope there is, anyway. Like you,
I would have thought so. Yeah, but whilst we're on the talk of season 2, if you like, volume 2, I think they call it. Do I need to go back and finish volume 1 before I jump onto volume 2?
Well,
would I miss anything, or
story-wise? No, but if you're a completionist, and as Keith says, each episode is brilliant. There's not really a bad episode. You may as well. I mean, if you've seen quarter of it already, you might as well watch the rest of it. But it's not essential.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you agree with that, Keith.
Yeah, no, it's not essential, Adam. But
I'm thinking.
So why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, because the end of volume 1's sort of fresh in my mind. If it leads straight on, and I might just jump straight onto it. That's all I was thinking.
Starts off so well, you're going to be hooked immediately.
Okay.
So you can tell why people love that Republic gunship with the tiger teeth. When you watch this, oh my God!
You've got that, haven't you, Keith?
Yeah, and he shouts, "Gun it!" Doesn't he, Captain Foe? I think it's Captain. Yeah. They're in there, coming towards a droid. They go, "We're undetected. Gun it!" And you see him put his accelerator down, and the ship goes. It's magic. In fact, I probably like that more than I like the ones we've talked about, if I'm honest.
Let's come back on for a second.
It's 1:25. Let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we like to finish with the old question: what makes this feel like Star Wars to you? So, Keith, what makes this feel like Star Wars to you?
Because it's got everything. It's got some romance in it. There's some humor in it. There's bloody good action. So it's got everything for me, So it's great, and it's slightly exaggerated, which is even better. It's what you'd want a live action film to be if you could do it.
If we could do it like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's why for me it's brilliant.
I mean, for me, it was, it's quite hard to say because it's quite unusual compared to most things that we have. But they still link it up really well with all the characters. They had Jewel of the Fates playing at one point, didn't they? I think I heard, yeah. And then you've obviously,
I think when he's fighting in Sarge, isn't it? Right as well. I think there's a bit of it in that as well.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So that was quite cool, because I wasn't really expecting that. I didn't really know what to expect from this. So, but yeah, that's all. It's all good, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to take too long. It's literally, it's the action, it's the lightsaber fights, it feels more. It does feel more like the prequel era, which obviously that's when it takes place. I mean, it doesn't feel like original Star Wars particularly, except for that one shot at the beginning, I think, where the Anakin's ship goes under the gas giant Yavin 4, and it's got some recognizable areas from the original trilogy. But at the time this coming out, we were in the depths of the prequels, weren't we, Keith? And it was a magical time to be a Star Wars fan. At least it was for me. And this was perfect. It filled that little itch that you had for the few years between the films. It had all the characters that you'd got to know from the first two films, and a lot of them didn't have speaking parts, but you got to see a lot more of them in this. And this was one other thing is this is the series that cemented my love for the character Shak Ti, who never says a line in the films. But I'd have to say, if I had to pick a favorite Jedi who wasn't one of the main characters or speaking characters, Shak Ti would definitely be that. And again, when you go to the next series, you'll see why. But yeah, I love this show. It totally feels like Star Wars to me. And if you haven't seen it, please go and check it out because you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Well, one thing I really love about this series, is being introduced to all these things that I haven't seen before. So I should probably thank you not just for joining us, Keith, but for introducing me to this. So
you're welcome, mate.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Enjoy.
What have you got coming up on your channel?
I've got obviously my figure focus line. It comes out every Friday normally. I've got about 35 to do, and I think I'm in about number 11 or 12.
Wow.
So what we'll do at the end of that, we'll have a grand finale in about 6 months' time where we reveal what it costs you to get the whole modern collection. So that'll be quite an episode. But I will be doing a real Clone Wars and Clone Wars cartoon episode in the very near future as well.
Brilliant. I look forward to that. Make sure you all go over to Keith's channel and subscribe to that. That's Mando number 5. His collection is unreal. So, but before you go to subscribe to Keith, make sure you hit like on this video and leave us a comment if you have seen the Clone Wars and let us know what you thought about it. Thanks for watching. I better get over and see Volume 2, hadn't I? So we'll catch you in the next one.